Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. It is round 1 week. Round 1 is upon us. It's only a couple of nights or a few nights away and I can't wait. I'm sure you guys can't wait as well. We've got a couple of must-have videos coming for you on the channel this week. So today we're going to be going through who I believe are some of the must-have premium players in the comp, and then we've got the must-have value players coming on Wednesday as well, because we've got our Q&A on the Tuesday. So we've got videos there, and also captain's video as well coming on Thursday. So plenty of content coming for you through the week, and yeah, then we'll be kicking off all the daily content pretty much from almost this point onwards. So you'll be getting stuff daily as well. So looking forward to pumping out heaps of content for you. Just sort of quickly plug something before we start. If you guys haven't signed up to our Patreon yet, make sure you do it, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Our cash league, you need to be in the Patreon and in the cash league by Thursday. So Thursday will be the cutoff for anyone that enters there. They're eligible for the cash prize there of at least $300. And the more people that we get entering, the higher that cash prize will be. So depending on how many more people we get, there might be more. And there will also be a little prize there as well for second and third. So if you do come in the top 3, you will get some prizes there as well. Plus you get all bonus content throughout the season, right? You get like captains a day early. You'll get a heap of other content. So yeah, mate, if you guys want to support us as well, along with getting some bonus content and being the chance to get some cash in our cash league, make sure that you would consider becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. But let's get into who I believe are some of the must-have premium players in AFL Fantasy ahead of round 1. So these are players I like. I might touch on a couple of key names as well that a lot of people are on, that what my thoughts are on them and if I believe they're quote-unquote, and when I say must-have, I mean must-have is in the guys that I like the most. So the guys that I'm keen on starting, I guess I'll just preface by saying that as well. So I believe that they're must-have in my own eyes, but they're not necessarily must-haves in terms of you have to have them. So let's get stuck into the defenders, because defenders is a tricky line to go through the players that we like. So in terms of players that over $1 million, there's not very many. Obviously, we've got a handful here, and there's not many that I actually like. So I'll start off with Harry Sheezel. And by no means is he a must-have, but I believe he is a good option. And there are a lot of factors going into this. So he's priced at 112. So he's not value, right? He's expensive. His break-even obviously sitting at 112 as well. But there's a few factors to consider with Harry Sheezel. So 56.23% owned is a bit of a talking point, right? Because I know we don't look at ownership, but when you've got a player in a Harry Sheezel where he can go 115, 120 for a sustained period, when he's owned by over half the competition, I guess it needs to be probably talked about a little bit. And the fact that when you look at this list of defenders here, Whitfield's got a bye. Zorko's got doesn't have a bye, but obviously he's 36. So he's one that a few people have looked at, but 20k more I'd rather Sheezel. Flanders has been injured in the preseason, early buy and no double price rise. Well, didn't play. Nick Martin, same thing, didn't play. Also change in role for both him and Flanders, so I'm not sure on that. Newman, obviously he's out for the season. Luke Ryan, I wouldn't start him there. Sinclair's obviously been injured, and Nasai might be the other one I quickly touch on in a sec. So when you look at that, and then you look at guys like here, like maybe Holmes is the first name that comes to mind here that I go, okay, I don't mind that option. There may be like a Tom Stewart. Sicily's been talked about as well. So a few options there. But the reason I guess Sicily is a name of topic is that when you look at the way James Leake played yesterday, didn't fill us with a huge amount of confidence. Jackson Pryor and Zach Reid have both got the bye in round 4. So that's, if you start both those guys, that's 2 rookies you're missing in round 4. Luke Traynor, we're not sure if he's going to be... It sounds like he could play on Thursday night. We don't know if he's going to be the sub or if he's going to be starting. And then you've got guys like Liam O'Connell and Jed Adams and a few of these 230k guys that aren't going to make a lot of cash, and you're not playing them on field, right? And a lot of people had a rookie on field. I think there's a play and even a structure that I've got at the moment where I could potentially go Rankin, Horn, Francis, whoever I've got down, play Davidson on field as my only rookie in the forward line, and use that cash in the defense, and then go get a guy like a Harry Sheezel. So it's not the fact I'm paying up for him because I think he's going to go 115, 120, because he could. It's more because of the lack of options in defense and the fact that, okay, Whitfield might go around that 105, 110 range. He's got an early buy. Everyone else, I don't know, like Flanders, Martin, I don't see these guys going over 105. Like Zorko realistically could with a good early run, but I don't know if he's going to average 105 for the whole year. So when you look at that, he could be 5 points, maybe even 10 points in a world clear. And if he was to be 10 points clear of the next defender, that's a pretty significant gap between the top defender and the second defender. So I think that the conversation is there, obviously, for people to potentially start him, even though he's not value, because of the other options there. So he's not must-have, but with the fact he's 56% owned, I think I've definitely warmed more to this pick, because I wasn't really on this pick being so expensive, but just with the lack of options, with the lack of rookie options on field, and we got some value options in defense, but it's not like we got a plethora of options to really start that we got confidence in. So I have opened a bit more to the Sheasel, starting him at D1. The other guy I like is Nasai Wanganeen-Miller. So with St Kilda's obviously weaker or thinner midfield, I should say. Obviously, I think Sinclair will play in there a bit more, which means I think Nasai could be the guy back there that gets a lot of this ball, right? So obviously had a pretty good year last year, averaged 97.7. I think he can go over a ton this year, and I think he can go like a 102, 103, 104. And if he's getting 5, 6, 7 points of upside, that's a pretty decent pick for a guy as your D1. It's just obviously the flag that got thrown was obviously that he was in a few CBAs. He went forward in that game against Port Adelaide. I wouldn't read too much into that. That'll be Sinclair's role. I think Nasai was just doing that purely because they were losing so badly. They were just trying a few things. Nasai will play off halfback. He'll be one of the main guys back there. And I think if Sinclair's playing in the midfield a little bit more, Nasai's that ceiling will bump up a bit more. Whether you just go, well, is he enough value to, has he got the ability to burn me if I don't start him? And can he really go at that 102, 103? That's obviously a debate that obviously I've been thinking about, and I'm sure that you guys will think about as well. So whether you start him or not, obviously that's obviously up to every coach. But I thought I'd raise him because they're probably the two of my favourites over the $1 million mark, Sheasel and Nasai. If I was to start those guys there, they'd be my favourites. So a couple other guys I really like, Max Holmes and Tom Stewart. Obviously, they don't have the early buy now. Tom Stewart averaged, I think, 103 when he has some CBAs. So obviously, that's a pretty good average there. And then Max Holmes as well, obviously averaged 95 last year, but did have a quieter end to the year. Max Holmes is quite popular now, the fact that he didn't have that early buy, and I can definitely see why. So they're two of the guys that I do like there as well. So in terms of, I guess, must-have premiums, I'm probably going to stop there in defence, because obviously if I keep going further down, then you're looking at guys like your Jaiden Shorts, your Harry Perryman's, Matt Roberts. I'll be talking about them in the value video. So if you want my thoughts on those, like 3 and a few others, tune into that one on Wednesday. So I'll give my thoughts there as well. So I'll stick to the guys over the sort of 900k bracket. I'll touch on Sicily though, because he's 896. I probably wouldn't look at starting him just with the risk of him going forward. So I'd probably avoid. I think there's just too many flags there now. The fact that Frost was sub and he went forward for a corner and looked good. Like he gave them an option up there and he looked dangerous. So I don't think that's going to go away. There is going to be a time where he does play a quarter and a half forward, which just takes that ceiling off. And I think you can start without him for me. So Sissy wouldn't be a guy. So really there's not any must-have premium options. Sheasel is almost there, but I just think he's expensive, so I wouldn't be looking at him there as well. So looking in the midfield, there is a couple of guys here that I really, really like. And again, I'll touch on the guys over 900k. That's pretty much where I go. Forwards, it'll be a bit lower, so we'll touch on them in a sec. But in terms of mids over 900k, there's two guys at the very top of the tree that I like. So John Dawson and Andrew Brayshaw. Shouldn't shock anyone that they're two of my favourites. And I think it's a very good play and one that I would be really strong considering, if you haven't already, of starting one of these guys at the top to, I guess, have that captain option at M1. So Jordan Dawson and Andrew Brayshaw are my favourite two. And I'll start with Jordan Dawson being the more expensive player, right? So he was obviously not highly owned when I picked him in my team a few weeks ago. He's now 21.5% owned, and I picked him at like 4% or whatever, something like that. He obviously went up high in average after that. High in ownership, because of that 135 that he scored against Brisbane in the Pracky game. Looked fantastic. And there's just so many signs pointing that he will go back to the 110 plus that he was a couple of years ago. He was injured from round 11, round 12 onwards last year, was nearly a late out in round 12 against Hawthorn, and played hampered throughout the rest of the year. He had a concussed game against Essendon later in the year as well. He also had a game against North Melbourne where he rested the last quarter because the Crows were up by so much. So there's a few factors there, along with the fact that Crows had a lot of key injuries. He had to fill holes. They've now recruited some players to fill those holes, plus there's health on the Crows side at the obviously time recording, so hopefully that stays the same. So you put all those factors in, and the fact that he'll bump back up to 50% CBAs, I think that's a minimum. I think he's more a 65-ish CBA guy. I think he'll be in the top 3 CBAs to the Crows this year. If that's the case, he's averaged 113 when he's had 50% CBAs or more. And when he's had 60% or more, he's averaged 115.6. And that's in both, and those stats are in both the seasons he's played as a midfielder. So that's including a poor year last year. I think that Dawson is a good pick. And I've currently got him in my team, and I don't see me not starting him at the moment. I guess Brayshaw's the only guy that I guess I could start over him, but I'm really keen on starting one of these guys. And the reason that I'm putting him in the must-have video here is because of the fact that they're both priced at 105, and I think they go 110 plus. And obviously they're a captain option, but they're also value. So when you're talking about a guy priced at 105 can go 110, 115, it's a really, really good pick. Not only are you getting a captain option, but you're getting 10 points of upside from a pretty high-end premium that is just, I think those 10 points are the equivalent of like a 20, 25 points from another player. So for me, Dawson, I really, really like there. And I would say he's a must-have. Obviously, as a Crows fan, that's probably the Crows goggles on there. But I really like him. And then Andrew Brayshaw as well is another one that I'm really keen on. So at the moment, I can't fit both of them in. If I could, I definitely would. So he's obviously a lot more unique. He's dropped in ownership by about 5%. Obviously, a lot of people go on to Dawson. A few people just didn't see a huge score from Brayshaw in the preseason. But his run to start the year is fantastic. So his first 9 games are really good. That Sydney game's a little bit tricky there in round 2. But every other game there I like Geelong, West Coast Bulldogs, Richmond, Melbourne, St Kilda, Collingwood. Like really good matchups there. He obviously had a change in role to begin the year last year. And I think it was a toe injury last year at the start of the year. And then came home averaging over 110. And we know he's got a ceiling. He fills all the stat lines. And that's the other thing with Jordan Dawson as well. Both these guys fill all the stat lines. Jordan Dawson probably kicks a goal or two more than an Andrew Brayshaw, but they fill the stat in terms of touches. They get obviously marks, tackles, everything like that. So I like both these guys. If I had to split these two and you were to pick one of them, I've currently got Jordan Dawson just ahead, just because I feel like that ceiling may be reached, I think, more because Dawson, I guess, fills the tackles and marks a lot more than what a Brayshaw does. It probably doesn't make a huge amount of sense because people are like, well, Brayshaw does the same thing. I guess like there's more games where Dawson gets 7, 8 marks and like 8, 9, 10 tackles, right? Brayshaw can have those games as well. I just feel like I've just got a feeling about Dawson as well. Like there's just when you see players in pre-season and the way they perform, and if they're like, they look $1 million, they normally perform like that. And Jordan Dawson looked like that in both Pracky games. I don't necessarily think Andrew Brayshaw looked bad, but I don't necessarily think Brayshaw looked as good as a Jordan Dawson. So the eye test for me is a big one there, and I'm currently going with Jordan Dawson. But I really like both, and if I can fit both in before Thursday night in some way, I'll definitely try and do that. Nick Dacos, obviously a pretty popular option. Obviously scored a 60 in the game yesterday, so I think you're not starting him now. He's going to drop in cash. I don't know if this is going to be his break-even. Yeah, there you go. So his break-even's up to 140. So that has adjusted. So his break-even was at 105. It's now to 140. Obviously, because he scored the 60 when he had a break-in 105. You're going to drop 30, 40K. Huge break-even again. He's going to continue to drop. So he's going to be a cheap option to bring in about a month or 6 weeks. So I'd be waiting on a Nick Dacos to bring him in. Moving down the list here. They're probably the guys I like over $1 million. Tom Green was a guy, obviously, that was interesting before the injury, even though he had the early bye. But now we get to the one that I think is a must-have. And I guess this will always be like the first must-have for me of the video. And that's Connor Rozee. Connor Rozee last year, 97 average. That's including a couple of injury-affected games there. Take those games out, that's a 103 average. So 6 points of upside there. Butters is out. more market share will go to Connor Rozee. And that first 4 games is fantastic. Collingwood, Richmond, Essendon, St Kilda is fantastic. Obviously, 2 of them being Adelaide Oval's great. Tricky games against Hawthorn, Sydney there. But then like North, Bulldogs, Adelaide, Geelong, Freos is not bad as well. And then he goes into his bye in round 12. So I like the start. There's only a couple of games there that you could say you're a little bit worried about. I just think Rozee, 97. I think he goes at least 105. I think he goes at 110 to start the year with those early fixtures. And if you're getting 13 points of upside, this is like the pick of like a... We saw like the Bonts and that from not last year before, priced at 90. He went 117, not expecting Connor Rozee to do that. But those picks in the 90s that go around that 110 and become a top 8 mid or thereabouts, they're the picks that you really want. So for me, I think Connor Rozee is a must-have. Obviously, bit of flag, just watch and see... all reports, he obviously went off with training through injury. I think it was a toe injury there. But reports he's fine. Just keep an eye on it if Port say anything otherwise. But if they say he's all good to go, no, they did it last year and said he was all good to go, but they're not going to do that again. They're not going to say he's all good and then he's injured. As long as they say he's all good to go, I'm still pretty confident picking him, and he's obviously currently in my side, and I think the odds are just putting him in your side as well. So Connor Rozee is a very good option in my opinion. Couple other names here, obviously, that could be of interest at some point, like Taranto, tough run. That's why I don't have him on the list here. Josh Dacos will get DPP. Scored 88 yesterday. Not enough to really sort of move the needle for me to start him. So I wouldn't be looking at starting him, but he's a potential good option. Jai Caldwell, if he didn't... No double price rise in round 1, and they got an early buy. Just means you can't start with him, unfortunately. But I didn't mind him, a guy that could have gone 105, and he did go 105 in that stretch last year playing in the midfield. Price at 94, but you just can't start with him anymore. The other guy to sort of, I guess, probably the last player in the mids I'll touch on, because I don't think there's any sort of ones here that I'll touch on, because I guess like guys like your Ashcrofts and Clayton Olivers and Tom Powers and guys like that are in the value one. So I'll touch on them there. So Christian Petrarca, 923k, 120 points in Pracky in the Community Series game. Looked fantastic, looked $1 million. And I'm normally pretty against starting premiums that have limited pre-seasons and don't play like all the Pracky games and are involved. But he looked fantastic in that game against Fremantle. Looked and got a lot more CBAs than what I expected. I didn't expect him to have that many CBAs than what he got. And again, as I say, he looked fantastic. And the rib injury, it's not like a soft tissue one where it's not like a calf or a hamstring where you're not doing fitness for a number of weeks. He had a cracked rib. He was still able to do his fitness. He was able to participate in non-contact drills. But the good thing is we got to see him and he looked good. So for me, I don't think he's a must-have as a Rozee, but he's a very, very good option to be starting with. Priced at 90, 923k. His run as well is very, very good. Giants in round 1's tough, but besides that, from rounds 2 to 8, look at that run. North, Gold Coast, Geelong, Essendon, Freo, Richmond, West Coast. That's fantastic. Could put up some big scores there. And we know that Petrarca's definitely a 100-plus guy when he's fit. I think he's at least, I can't remember where I heard this stat somewhere, but he's a 103 minimum guy in this midfield role when he's not injury impacted like he was last year, and he played forward a lot. I don't know if he's going to have that much forward time this year, but end of the day, if he plays a lot forward, he'll get forward status. So I see it going 1 2 ways. I see him being a majority midfielder and scoring really well, or playing a lot forward, getting forward status, becoming a forward that you can chuck in the forward line. So he's currently in my team at the moment. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's got at least 10 to 15 points of upside, and he's got the ceiling of, I think, a 110, 111 average. So if he was to do that, that's a smash pick. That's 20 points of upside for a guy priced at 90. That could be big. So I do like Petrarca for the potential upside there. So Rozee is definitely the must-have here, and Petrarca, very good option. And I also really like one of those two guys above $1 million there in a Jordan Dawson, Andrew Brayshaw. Jack Stewart, don't mind as well. I just prefer the other two guys. They're a little bit cheaper as well. And I guess people are on Dawson and Brayshaw. And even a Steele, like Steele was about 1%. What's he currently up to now? So he's still at 1%, to be fair. I thought a few people might have jumped there just because Bont being injured, Walsh obviously limited preseason, Butters injured, Gordon injured, Treloar injured, Merritt obviously got the round 4 bye and no double sort of price rise or anything. So I'm a little bit surprised he's not higher, but he could be a bit of a smoky pod out there if you guys want to go towards a Jack Steele. Moving to the rucks, and there are probably 3 premiums sort of in this bracket that you could say are a very, very good option. So Marshall, I wouldn't start with the limited preseason, which is unfortunate because his early run is really good as well. High price, most expensive player in the game. Can't start him with this limited preseason, I don't think. So Tristan Cherry's the next guy, and it's a little bit in the same vein as a Harry Sheezel. So he's currently 60.35%, and that's even gone up more than what I anticipated it to be. So over 60% of the comp are on a Tristan Cherry. Now, I guess it's almost at that point where you're not, like, it's very high risk, high reward with a Tristan Cherry if you don't start him. Because if you don't start him and he drops some lower scores early against these tougher matchups, he'll drop in price. However, if he does English round 1, he'll be fine. But then obviously goes into a Gawn, O'Brien, Grundy, and Witts. But if he can tackle his way to good scores here and even just get 105, 110s, he's not going to drop a considerable amount in price. His break-even's 115. He could even score over that in round 1, which I think he definitely could against Tim English. And if he does that, he's going up a tiny bit, and his break-even's not going to just skyrocket like really high. I guess depending on how the magic number works and all the break-evens and everything. So it could even still rise regardless if he goes. Well, will rise regardless if he goes like 120, 125. But it'll just be interesting to see where it sits. But being so highly owned, he's prime age of 25 for this premium ruck. And I know Selby's referenced this a few times. When we see these premium rucks have a big year like this, we normally see them continue on for a number of years. Like we've seen guys like a Gawn, a Grundy, even Dean Cox back in the day. Like we see all these, the best rucks have a big breakout year. They don't just all of a sudden go missing or whatever. They normally back it up and they keep having strong years. So Tristan Cherry, I know people are scared of this run of Gawn, O'Brien, Grundy, Witts, but Tristan Cherry tackles. He can still tackle his way to a solid score. He's still going to get 20 hitouts at least in every game pretty much to raise that floor. And Gawn, obviously, is a bit trickier, but O'Brien I don't see as a tricky matchup. Crows are a high stoppage team as well, which is great for a guy like Tristan Cherry. Then goes into a Brody Grundy who has looked underdone so far, and who knows if he's carrying injury and if he misses this game, all of a sudden he's up against Laddams and he could have a massive score there. Witts, in here at round 5, do they bring Moyle in for that game? Like, if they bring Moyle in and rest Witts for that one game, then all of a sudden that's a potential big score there. And then Carlton, Port, Essendon, Brisbane, obviously a bit of a mixed run there, and then Richmond, Collingwood before his bye. So people are saying it's bad, and I do agree, but I don't know if it's bad enough to the point where I'd be fading him. And I feel like he is bordering on a must-have, purely with the fact that there are questions on most rucks this year. And I just think it's good to pay up for one of these rucks to have a guy locked in. Well, that's like how I like set and forget, and I do like to lock in a ruck. And I think of the guys here, Cherry's the guy most likely to finish the top 2 ruck. And he's obviously got a tough run to start, but then that run does open up later in the year as well. So whether you want to not start him and go someone else, that's obviously what you can potentially do. Max Gawn is obviously one of these premium rucks. The comments from Troy Chapman have scared me off. The fact that him saying, like, there's better ruck depth this year, they may be able to rest Gawn in game, if not give him rest and play a Tom Campbell. I think he even mentioned playing both, potentially. I don't see them playing both. I think that was just more sort of just to add to the conversation. But those comments there, he's essentially the same price as Sheezel. I'd rather Sheezel over Gawn, put Sheezel in my defensive line and go get another ruck. So for me, I'm not starting a Gawn. That the run is a little bit trickier to start as well, the first sort of three games. After that, though, it does open up. Well, actually, to be fair, Giants, if... Briggs, I don't think will play. I think he got concussed yesterday. I'm not sure. But if he did, he's missing that game. That could be a mammoth score for Max Gawn coming up there. And I dare say if that's the case, he's going to be pretty hype in the captains and definitely making me think about starting him. Then goes Cherry and Witts. But then open. So I guess, obviously, with the Briggs out, it probably isn't as tough a run anymore. So he's got Cherry and Witts. And then he goes, that run there right from rounds 4 to 8 is very, very good. So it does make me consider starting him. I just think that the question marks. He is 33 now as well. I think I'm just going to fade at this point in time. Tim English is probably my next favourite behind a Tristan Cherry of these top price guys. Priced at 104.6. Obviously average He was an average player last year, right? So he could definitely go 110 plus again. He's got more upside than a Cherry, I guess, in terms of value. Obviously, I think Cherry's got a high ceiling, but in terms of the upside, I should have said that, not more value. He's got more up. No, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I was right. No, he's got more value on him, not more upside. Yeah, that's why I got confused. English has got more value on him compared to a Cherry, and if he can close that gap to win in 5-10 points, you're saving yourself 70-80k, and you're getting a guy that still could be pretty solid. Like, the run's okay, without being like amazing. So North, not great. Collingwood's okay. Carlton's okay. Freo's good if Reedy's still the ruck there. McInerney, Marshall, Briggs, tough. And then, yeah. So, a guy like English, I still think I prefer Tristan Cherry. Just, it's not that much more. Like, it's, what is it? It's 100k. Sorry, 101k. 100k, right? It depends. Can you see English being within 10 points of Cherry? That's probably the big conversation there for him. So, for me, I'd prefer Cherry. But if that 100k comes in useful, English is not a bad play there as well. And the last guy I guess I'll chat about is a Darcy Cameron. So 987k. I didn't think I'd be talking about him in this video, but he scored 136 points in the game against Giants yesterday. Yes, was against ruckless Giants, essentially with just Lockie Keefe there for most of the game. But his break-even's at 64. He's going to go up. His break-even would have been about 96 because it's knowing what their average is. I think that's with the break-even. So he would have scored that. He'll be over $1 million with that score. Break even 64. He could make some, and he's got Port and Bulldogs to start. He could even be a 2-week play where you just get some cash, and even you could go to Cherry after a couple of those tougher matchups. That is a play and something I have considered with the Darcy Cameron. I'm probably not going to go there because I think it is a ballsy one. It's a bit like what Chris did with Tom Green last year. You could definitely do it. I'm probably just not going to do it, though. But there will be a lot of people out there that are keen on Darcy Cameron after that score yesterday, along with like a Lloyd Meek who went 110. And I just think that, yeah, I think Cameron's probably the better option if you've got this about 80k. And Mitch. Sorry, long day. Obviously recording this after our pod with the Ball Boys last night. Meek, yeah, I think that there's more upside, as I said, with a Darcy Cameron. And as Mitch said, it's not like he didn't put up these 110, 120 scores last year, right? It's just he probably won't do it consistently enough to make that cash. Could he make 100k? Absolutely, right? I just think I'd rather go for De Koning if you didn't have him. I'd rather go Darcy Cameron, or I'd rather just pay up. I feel like a lot of other options. A few people are keen on Meek, though, so I couldn't talk you out of starting him, but I do like better options. So they're probably the rucks there. Last guy I'll talk about is Tom De Koning, because I guess he's probably an underpriced premium there. I really like him. He's probably a must-have for me, being the solo ruck for Carlton to start the season. Richmond round 1 is fantastic. Their run is pretty soft as well after that. Like, they've got Hawthorn, which is not bad. And they've got the Bulldogs, Collingwood, West Coast. Like, it's a very, very good 5 games to start the season. I just think, and people are worried about Pitney coming into the team potentially. If Carlton are 4-1, 5-0 by the time that Pitney's back, or like 3-1, whatever, are they really going to change the structure where they've been winning games from? I don't think they will. If that's the case, if they're losing games, obviously, yes, there's a chance he comes back in. There is a chance he comes back in anyway. I just think if they're winning games, winning a lot more than losing, they got a Curnow, Mackay up forward, Brody Kemp the third forward. Do they really need De Koning down there as well, along with a Pitney? I don't think so. So I think there is a chance that De Koning is solo ruck a bit longer than what we maybe anticipate. So a lot of it's depending on how Carlton start. So, but I think for me he's probably a must-have in my opinion. So I'll put him there in the must-haves. For the forwards, I'll touch on these now because there'll be a lot of other value guys in the other positions that will be, I guess, in the must-have category of the value players. A few ones I really like and a few that are definitely in the mix. So in terms of the forwards that I guess are the must-haves, before I touch on sort of a couple of the other options here. So guys that must-have, first one, Jack Macrae. Again, priced at, 71. I think he goes minimum 100 this year. I think he's a realistic chance of going 105, 110 this year. I don't know if he's going to hit the 110 marker, but I think he hits around the 105. That's 34 points of upside if he goes 105. That's a fantastic pick there, and definitely a must-have. Nearly 56% owned as well. I think got to jump on board as well. And he's going to be one of the top 2 midfielders for the Saints. They recruited him for a reason. He's been the number 2 guy with Jack Steele in there in the preseason. Was the only guy to score over 85 against Port Adelaide with a 107. If he's top scoring by that distance, in that, what can he do in some of these games where St Kilda are getting more points, getting more of the ball? There could be some big scores for Macrae this year. We could see a bit of the Macrae of old this year return, which would be fantastic. Obviously, we all want to see that as well, and a lot of us are starting him. So he's the first must-have. The second must-have, I'll go down, and these aren't premiums, these are value plays, and I'll probably say them again in the next video, but Bailey Smith, 598k, I think he's a must-have. I know that there's obviously didn't play in the Community Series game, but you got to remember, this guy's priced at 58, right? 598k, even if he goes 80, which I think that's worst case, that's 20 points upside in a line where there's like the top forwards go 90. 20 points of upside's fantastic. I think he's the most owned player in the game. I just think you got to start him. He's a must-have for me. And then the other one is a Caleb Daniel. So he's a bit more down the list here. Obviously, very, very cheap. And again, very much that value play. Caleb Daniel, 514k, right? Priced at 50. I think there could be 50 points of upside here, which is massive. And it's, again, must start for in your team. I think minimum goes 80. I think that's absolute worst case. I think he goes 90 plus. And I definitely see him potentially hitting triple figures. We know North halfbackers generally score pretty well. I think Caleb Daniel's going to fit that bill again. And he's, again, very, very highly owned as well. So for me, I think he is a very, very good option to be starting there. And I guess the final forwards I'll touch on here as well. I'll touch on Sanders in the next video because he's a bit more of that value play. He's not really a premium. So I'll touch on him in the next video. So the 2 players I like in the forward line over 750k, just because I don't trust Simpkin as much. So he's one that a few people might look at. I just don't know what the role will be, and I don't know if I trust it. And some of the Parker as well. I'd prefer to see those roles with those 2. 2 guys, Jason Horne-Francis, arguably being the best player in the preseason so far, has looked fantastic. Priced at 90. I think he can definitely go 100, especially with these early fixtures as well. And that could put him sort of in those top 2 or 3 forwards, especially at the start of the year. Yeah, like as I said with Rosie, great early run. No Zach Butters. Does that mean Horne-Francis is the guy that gets the tag? That's obviously the flag on a Jason Horne-Francis, but I like him. Priced at 90, I think he goes 95, and he definitely could hit triple figures. So I like Horne-Francis. And then Isaac Rankin's the next one. And I guess this is the interesting debate between the 2, right? Rankin priced at 80. I think he can go 90 plus and reach that maybe 95 range. It really comes down to, I think it probably comes down to does that 100k between Rankin and Horne-Francis help you, right? If you don't need the 100k, I'd probably just lean Horne-Francis, probably for the ceiling, because I don't know if Rankin's going to hit that ceiling as much as what a Horne-Francis can. But if that 100k comes in useful, I think Rankin can go within 5 to 10 points of Horne-Francis. And being at 100k cheaper, that's worthwhile saving that cash and going a Rankin. So if you do prefer a Rankin instead, I definitely can get around that as well. So he's got a pretty good early run as well. St Kilda, Essendon, North, Gold Coast, Geelong, first 5 is very good. Bedford probably in round 6 there is a bit tricky, but then a few tougher games after that. So it's the first 5, but if you can get off to a brilliant start, it's probably not going to matter too much, particularly in the forward line as well. So yeah, Rankin I like. If I had to choose between 2, as I said, probably just Horne-Francis for the ceiling, but he could get the tags as well with no Butters. So they're probably the 2 there. That's probably a bit of a coin flip. But yeah, they're my favourite guys. There's a few guys that the must-haves are premiums, but premiums are quite hard to, I guess, say who the must-haves are, right? So for me, there's no must-haves in defence. Sheasel's like the closest to that market in the defence. Obviously, midfield, I think Rosie's a must-have. Petrarca's not a must-have, but a very, very good option, along with starting one of a Dawson or Brayshaw, and they're borderline must-have, having, I guess, one of those guys. I do like. You don't have to have them, and that's why they're not must-have, because they're expensive and people may go for value, but I do really like them. Rucks, obviously, there's a few options around the mix there, but it is quite a tricky year this year. I think Tom de Koning is the must-have for me. And then the forward line, obviously, we've got the 3 in Jack Macrae, Bailey Smith, and Caleb Daniel. And then a Jason Horne-Francis and Isaac Rankin are some good options to be considering as well. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys, who you think are the must-have players across the positions as premium players. Let me know who you guys are locked into your team, and if you agree or disagree with any of the players I've talked about today. If you think they are, if you agree, they're must-haves, or if you disagree, they're not must-haves. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and could definitely get some conversation going in the comments below. Always happy to answer all the questions that come in on the video. So, but yeah, make sure you smash like on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. You guys have been smashing the subs over the last couple of weeks as we approach the season. So thank you very much to all the new subscribers, and welcome to AFL Fantasy Fanatics if you are new. If you do want to get involved with our Patreon, as I said, head to patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Link is in the description below as well. As I said, you get access to a heap of bonus and exclusive content all season long. You get like the captain's video a day early on the Wednesday instead of the Thursday that you guys get on YouTube. You get access to the Cash League as well if you sign up before round 1. And there's prizes for the top 3. And there'll be potentially $300, if not maybe $400 or $500 for the win, depending on how many people get signed up this week. And yeah, just if you want to help support us as well, that's obviously the other thing. If you guys would like to do that for all the content we pump out, then that would be very much appreciated as well. But yeah, we're back tomorrow for our Q&A. They're answering a heap more of your questions. There's a Patreon exclusive Q&A as well that I'll be recording later on tonight when you guys see this video. So if you haven't signed up Patreon yet as well and you want to get questions answered, team reviews and all that sort of stuff, hit me up there at Patreon and get involved there, and I can answer all your questions there because I'll be recording that tonight. So, but yeah, as I said, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow night for our Q&A. So thanks, everyone. I'll catch you guys tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone. See ya.